government, PBOs, CSOs, private sector actors, most importantly, the NPO working group, that is also our co-host for today's forum. Our esteemed partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The authority and the Kenya NPO working group on FATF is honored and delighted to host this critical interactive dialogue forum in marking the inaugural PBO week 2026, which we launched on Monday. It is my pleasure to welcome you all and thank you for taking time to join us as we explore how best to navigate FATF risk-based monitoring while ensuring effective and enabling sector oversight. So this forum is very important to us as the authority and also as a sector, because it really underscores the collective responsibility that we have. It recognizes that we have a collective responsibility in terms of ensuring that there's effective regulation and a thriving sector anchored in strong partnerships and sustained collaboration. And achieving this oversight balance, it calls for continuous engagement, mutual trust, and collective commitment between regular shared vision of a transparent, accountable, credible, and resilient PBO ecosystem. I wish to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the Kenya NPO Working Group, and especially Muslims for Human Rights, Muhuri, Article 19, and the Center for Human Rights and Policy Studies, CRIPS, for their collaboration for possible. We really, really appreciate that collaboration. And with those brief remarks, I want to thank you for your presence, for your participation, and the continued. It is my distinct honor to invite our Director General and CEO at the authority to deliver the official opening remarks. Asanteni.
Our partners, led by Attorney Tupochile from UNODC, Hassan from the Islamic Relief, and my friend Walid from Muhuri, who is another country director present. All the invited guests, the NPO working group. Good morning. It's a pleasure and honor to see you this morning. I know we've had the exhibition since Monday, and I'm very, very delighted to see all of you here this morning to have this engagement about FATF issues. Allow me to also appreciate and recognize the presence of government officials from the other ministries who we work together, from FRC, from the National Police Service, NCTC, Ministry of Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Kenya Bankers Association, ISPAC, and all of us. It is my honor this morning to welcome you all to this forum of Talk to Your Regulator, which has been designed not only to inform, but to listen and to clarify some of the things that we talk about, and for us to move forward together as a sector. You will realize that this forum it's for the sector, which we are now getting used to. You know, it used to be a non-governmental organization. Now it's a public benefit organization, isn't it? Yeah. And also combined with government, because as a nation, we want to move together. The theme the new dawn, as I said, it was deliberately designed for us to move together so that no one is left behind. And also, because we are celebrating the impact the BPOs are making in our country, in our community, by reaching out to the vulnerable groups in our society. We want to connect voices together from the far end north of Turkana to Lamu, to Kiunga, to Maasai land, to the northeastern part of our country. As a people, that what we are saying, that the BPO Act is going to transform us and transform our from the NGO Act of 1990, which has now become obsolete, and with the launch and the gazettement of the regulation as a sector, because this is what we've been yearning for, we've been looking for it, we worked for it all of last year, and now we are here. It's a few months, few weeks, 13th of May, when we will have all transited to become BPO. By now, each and every BPO knows that it has been approved by Parliament. Now we are bound to do things as per those regulations. For the we are still using the regulations of 1990, isn't it? Yeah, but right now, going forward, we are in the new era, we are in the new dispensation. And we rebranded all of us, and we will be going forward and to all regions, sensitizing all of us about this. And I hope that isn't it? Yeah, it's outside there. It's in our tent. It's in our website. Acquaint yourself with the regulations. It's accessible. In our ICM platforms last year in December in Coast, early this year in Eldoret, sensitizing ourselves and talking about the regulations, talking to be an enabler for the sector. We are not there to be punitive in any way. And as our minister said on Monday, our CS said on reach out to us, and we will be able to help you so that you can be able to do what you are doing. Because what you are doing is communities. When we unveiled the 2024-2025 report, you were able to see how much impact we are making out there in the L2 government. 246 billion is not a small amount of money. And that is a conservative figure, by the way. Compliant BPOs, about only 4,000. You can imagine if all the 9,000 BPOs that are active filed their returns, their activities. We need to report how the impact that we are creating in communities, because out of that report that you give clear, then we can be able to say accurately how much impact we are creating in our community, how many people we are employing, people are employed by this sector. To me, that is still a conservative figure. We are more than that. We are more than that. So we can only give the accurate figure. FATF credit list, and BBORA is now is an implementing agency for FATF actions in Kenya, and we have financing as required by FATF Recommendation 8 and Section 43A of the BBO Act. And today we are here to get based approach, intelligent and collaborative approaches. Even as we continue to sector from being misused by entities that are not even BBOs themselves by nature, that they are not even a federation by nature. Global NGO Summit, Stakeholder Summit 2026, that they are organizing a big forum here in Nairobi, and they are taking you pay a huge amount of money, which the authority is not part of it. We are not partners. Yet there are some. So I'd wish to inform all of us and inform all the BPOs in the country that the BPO is not part of advising any PBO to attend that forum. Henceforth, we urge PBOs to verify any convenings. Our official engagements are published in our website and our social media channels. And where in doubt, please seek clarification directly from the authority. For WWF and DRC, thank you so much for your continued support. And to our gold partners, all 16 of you, including Cooperative Bank, Cranton, all of you, thank you for your support for making the New Dawn possible. And so, please talk to your regulator. This is your platform, and we want to ask you to share your concerns, ask questions to the panelists who are here, who will be here, and they are experts, sustainable and fully compliant with all our international obligations. Welcome again to a New Dawn in action. God bless you, and I'm looking forward for a robust.
Thank you, Director General. I want to invite Abdullah Hassan from the NPO Working Group to also give us a few opening remarks.
I'm too tall for this place. Good morning, everyone. Hamjambo. Mko salama. Good to see a lot of civil society members in this meeting. First of all, let me just give you a history of the MPO working group. It's not something that started yesterday. It started in 2018. By then, I was the CEO of Muslims for Human Rights. Muhuri, I don't know whether you've heard about Muhuri. It's an organization that works in the coast, and it did this process basically to collaborate with our government and to ensure that, you know, we are safe from risks, particularly money laundering. That was the essence of having this program. So we attended several international programs. And under FATF, there are about how many recommendations? There are 14 recommendations, and recommendation 8 specifically touches on civil society. To ensure that civil society participates in the process, and they are very, you know, aware of all that goes around our work around terrorism financing and money laundering. When we initiated the process, a lot of the people who were engaging with the government were not very cooperative when we were starting. And it was hard to engage with the government. I think I'm glad that this process has really rolled out as civil society now. I want to call it you call it PBO? It's PBB or RA. I hear there's an organization called PBORA. There's that. I think generally, I will say the regulator, let me use the word regulator and authority, has been very instrumental in this initiative and working with them. It's something we really aspired to have, but it has not been there. I'm glad that and we're so happy to have you, and we are happy that this process is continuing. A few of us started now the NPO working group. I work for Islamic Relief now. I'm the country director for Abdul Rashid, stand up because you represent Islamic Relief. We have these members. We are glad that we also have one of the donors who has really been supportive in this initiative. We have ICNL, which were also very, very instrumental in the whole process. Please have a seat. Ensure that we are all free from terrorism financing. We are threatened by bad people in the essence. That's why we have the NPO working group to educate the civil society and the public benefit organizations. Basically, we do screening. They don't just come. Once they come, they are screened to know whether they are free from those issues. I think that's the essence of we need to really making sure that we reach out to all the civil societies. Let's reach out to the civil societies in the Rift Valley, in Western Kenya. We can reach out to those civil societies just to educate them and to initiate the process. I think that is the most important thing. Please, let's make sure we work with our government. Very, very important. We ultimately all have one objective for us to engage, know your regulator, work with them, engage with them. Where you see you're in the dark, please consult and ask them. I have to be very frank with you, happy that the regulator has really, really been very instrumental in the way they support us. Thank you very much.
To this year's PBO Week 2026.
At this point, we move across the sectors from the office of the UNODC, regional
We shall
advisor
be also having
AMLCFT,
our
Madam
same.
Chile to Chile. Havana, Madam.
Thank you, Madam MC. It's okay. I'm used to getting my name butchered. I blame it on my parents. They didn't name me. They decided to sentence me. So, yeah. I would like to ride on the protocols that have already been observed and to thank the DG for inviting me to make this keynote address, or more visible within our national AML CFT discourse. Across the country, PBOs are delivering humanitarian assistance, strengthening community and high-risk environments. These contributions directly support Kenya's national development priorities and constitutional values. I was really blown away. 46 billion, wow, that's quite something, and that's conservative. At the same time, our national risk assessment has identified terrorism financing as a real and evolving threat. In precisely the contents in which the FATF recommendation 8 must be understood, not as a constraint on civil society, but as a risk management tool to resilience, credibility, and sustainability.
Historically, the implementation of Recommendation 8, both globally and in some national contexts, entire non-profit sector treated as inherently risky. Evidence has since shown that such approaches often resulted in over-regulation of low-risk organizations. The Financial Action Task Force revised Recommendation 8 to explicitly require a risk-based, proportionate, and targeted approach. Under the revised standards, avoid blanket obligations that undermine effectiveness. So, as you can see, the evolution aligns closely with Kenya's NRA-driven AML safety framework, which emphasizes evidence, proportionality, and effectiveness. Source and channels of funding, geographic areas of operation, delivery mechanisms may warrant enhanced attention. The policy task, the positive implementation. For Kenya, and particularly for the regulator, this means regulation that is risk-informed, drawing directly from the NRA, and punitive in design, respects constitutional rights, civic space, and humanitarian principles. It is very interesting, not many countries have a PBO. You ought to tap yourself on the back for. It is very, very impressive. Positive implementation requires regulators to engage in structured reporting or prior approvals, coordinate effectively with AML CFT authorities, including the FRC, the DCI, the ATPU, to name a few. Such an approach of terrorist financing risk does not require PBOs to operate like financial institutions. Rather, it rests on sound governance and those annual reports on your funding and on how the funds have been used. You have the duty to provide them because it helps them to know which PBOs should be high risk and which ones are not. In the absence of that, it is very easy to cover you all under high risk. It's much easier to do that than to consider you are low risk. Due diligence and cross-border transfers, timely reporting of suspicious activity through appropriate channels. When applied proportionately, these measures protect calls for coordination between regulators, supervisors, and financial institutions, ensuring that mitigation measures are calibrated, not reactionary. They see the role that they play in this process. Successful implementation of Recommendation 8 in Kenya requires a whole-of approach. Government and regulators applying targeted NRA-aligned oversight, exercising proportionate consultative regulation, strengthening internal governance, exclusion, and development partners like the UNODC, supporting compliance without undermining impact. And on that note, I'm happy to say that the UNODC will be out in different areas supporting the activities they have in sensitization on the national risk assessment. Finds no safe harbor, legitimate charitable work continues unhindered, public trust in the PBO sector is strengthened. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, please let us issue. It is a national asset. 246 billion is not small money. By implementing FATF Recommendation 8 in its true spirit, framework, we can demonstrate that it is possible to protect national security while safeguarding the civic space that underpins inclusive development. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Can we give a second hand of clap of? We move into the next session of having a panel discussion. What does collaboration, conversations, and partnership look like? And I invite my colleague from the Secretariat of the Working Group. Thank you.
also coordinator for the Kenya NPO Working Group on the Financial Action Task Force. Now I'll begin by apologizing for the many acronyms and abbreviations we are using. Just for clarification, NPO is to clarify things. But today I won't be on stage on my own. I'll be joined by a very able panel who will be speaking to issues that we've been discussing today around protection of the sector from potential terrorism financing abuse, but ensuring that the measures that we put in place do not unfairly disrupt or discourage civil society activity. And first, we'll begin with Mr. Vincent Roby, who's the Senior Legal Officer from the Financial Reporting Center. Please give him a clap as he gets on stage. Next, we'll have Mr. Zakaria Mwangi, who's the Assistant Registrar at the Business Registration Service. Please give him a clap as he gets on stage. Wende, who's the Assistant Director for Social Development at the State Department for Social Protection. At NCBA Bank, and also the chair of the KBA, Kenya Bankers Association Compliance Committee. Programs manager at the Muslim for Human Rights. Please give him a clap. Board. I think in view of time, we'll just head right into it. And my first question will be to Mr. Roby, just thinking about the process of the grey listing that you've all heard about. Mr. Roby, why is Kenya grey listed, and what are the implications? And also just to find out from you, what is Kenya expected to do in order to get off the grey list?
Yeah, thank you so much. It is a long story to explain why Kenya was grey listed. I see I've been given 6 minutes, 22, and the country was found to be having quite a number of strategic deficiencies. Basically, the process went on, and in conclusion, did not have adequate systems to supervise the country for anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. So we'll talk of the financial sector and the non-financial sector for those who have the understanding of the terminology. Secondly is the issue of the country being able to explain the utility of how we are able to use financial intelligence, not able to satisfactorily explain its effectiveness in its ability to investigate and prosecute context of the country in terms of the size of the economy, in terms of the monies that are getting lost through money laundering and terrorism financing. Yes, the legal and regulatory framework for the sector, for the NPO sector. In that, we had put a system whereby as the reasons why we're in the grey list. The implications are, if a country finds itself in the grey list, the country is required to improve its ML system. So FATF calls upon countries to enhance measures. So this is in terms of trade, in terms of foreign direct investment, in terms of transaction cost, and even the image of the country is always put at stake because very weak and fragile states. So the implication is also on the image of the country. What is Kenya expected to do? One, Kenya is supposed to add those set timelines. Kenya was put on the grey list and given a timeline from February 2024 to May 2026. So we have 1 month. As to whether we are making progress, I think it is a question in this panel we'll be able to discuss. Thank you, sir.
Question into a very simple answer that everyone can understand. So we all understand the implications of the grey listing and why we are on it. But one of the reasons that Kenya was grey listed had to do with the regulation of non-profit organizations and play to address these gaps.
Thank you very much, Kimari. I realized that I'm doing much of these panels. I've been very much familiar now and popular in these kinds of conversations. Robbie here has spoken about the grey listing and enhanced monitoring by FATF, as we all understand. There were a number of gaps, and I will not speak generally, but I will speak by the sector. And the first was non-compliant rating on recommendation 8. So FATF found that Kenya's oversight of NPOs was insufficiently risk-based. How difficult it was, or it probably still is, in accessing banking services and even opening bank accounts. Accessing banking services and even opening bank accounts. A colleague of mine was sharing with me how, from the sector, of course, how it's been very difficult for him to open an account in a particular. It's quite understandable for the KYC thing, but it's also sometimes cumbersome and frustrating to some of the organizations while accessing was identified, over-regulating and also under-regulating. We saw, even in the past, my former boss here, difficult then to engage with the NGO Coordination Board. We all know that. But also how it was very, how other organizations were. So some felt that they were over-regulated, and others felt that they were not, the focus was not so much on them. And speaking about, feel the pressure of being over-regulated, but those that were registered under the NGO board then, which were NGOs, and not all of them, some of them felt that so these were things that were very new, although some, very few, a small percentage of organizations had some knowledge on this particular topic, but many organizations were not free. And we're also glad that we brought in the NPO working group to now act as a bridge between the NPO sector and the regulators. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And you know, you've highlighted some of those gaps in the regulation of the sector, and I know since February 2020, the PBORA has been making a lot of progress to address some of these gaps and deficiencies, including through a new dispensation or a new act. So my next question goes to Bernadette, just to ask, how has the PBORA deficiencies that were identified by the FATF?
So thank you very much and good morning. The deficiencies that were identified, you find Mr. Robbie has mentioned that the first issue was actually the fact that we needed to delist, that we needed to change the law to ensure that we are not burdening the non-profit organizations. And we are working together with FIU, which is the Financial Reporting Center, to ensure that the law has been amended to allow not to burden the non-profit organization. That was actually one of technical deficiency when it comes to compliance. And the Financial Action Task Force definition is a functional definition of who a non-profit organization is, who falls into the non-profit organization. Then the next aspect, the next line would be of the non-profit organization that fall under functional definition of raising how many, or out of this universe, which subsets are at risk of terrorism financing. And that was another deficiency because as a jurisdiction, Kenya had not identified through the financing, then who is actually high risk, medium risk, and low risk And then when you identify the categorization of those who are the risk level for the particular subject at risk, then now you establish a risk-based monitoring framework to oversight them. And I remember our keynote speaker mentioned that, said the fact that you're not overregulating the sector and you're giving the sector information, and Mr. Okado mentioned that the fact that the level of awareness of how terrorism financing manifests itself. Done as the authority, the first step was to carry out a sectoral risk assessment for the sector with together with our stakeholders, the non-profit organizations in Kenya. And we concluded the study in 2024. We launched the report in December 2024 with 8, almost 7 inherent risk vulnerability or risk factors. And if you're close to conflict zone, you may come into contact, you may be forced to pay protective fees and things, like that. And the awareness and the readiness to make sure that you are able to validate, verify the sources of funds and how the money is being utilized. You will appreciate the funds and how the money is being utilized. You will appreciate, as an economy, can illicit financial flows. And the other solution that we've had after we have done the risk assessment, now working together with the CSO, the company limited by guarantee, and we have the responsible authority in that. You find the risk is low when it comes to TF, and the nature of the operations are a bit smaller. So the likelihood of abuse for a CBO for terrorism financing is low. And the ones that we found to be high were the non-NGOs with a risk-based approach or framework whereby we will actually understand the risks each and every subset that is the faith-based organization and the NGOs need. If you're high risk, that is the faith-based organization and the NGOs need. If you're high risk, we understand, is it the issue of your finances? Is it the issue of the program? Is it the issue, what the aspects that bring the already been identified, and one of our key stakeholders is supporting us on that, the UNODC. Will go out and socialize the findings, we socialize how TF manifests itself, we socialize the NRA, the National Risk Assessment.
Explained well what we have to do also to ensure that the measures that we're putting in place to address this terrorism financing risks are themselves proportionate and risk-based, which is really the standard that's set at the fair and not discourage non-profit organizations. So some of the groups clarified as non-profit organizations, which Bernadette has already mentioned, include companies limited by guarantee. And my next question, limited by guarantee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sure maybe quite a number of us are wondering what the registrar of companies would have anything to do with entity that we register that falls within that sector, and that is a company limited by guarantee. I am not sure whether we have any in the room who are registered with us. There is some form of screening to ensure that we sieve off any person who may be associated with terrorism activities or terrorism financing activities, so that they're not able to get a platform, the types of entities that we monitor and maybe supervise. And it is on this basis that we did a risk assessment based on the findings on the ground, in terms of there's been some form of activities which suggest that there are TF elements which could be going on. So based on that risk assessment, despite popular misconception that they are actually at high risk, they are at low risk. And maybe one of the reasons could be the fact that there is a screening before entry into play, such as making sure that we are able to have comprehensive information about anyone that we are registering, including beneficial ownership information. And you'll notice that this is a critical who are behind it, who could have some level of control. And that is one of the things that we made sure that was put in place, including enhancing. In essence, some of the steps that we've taken is to making sure that we have a framework of collection of beneficial ownership information. But as you'll notice, when you take the risk, companies limited by guarantee do not take a high chunk of the resources that we need to have in place to ensure that we prevent taken. We have had to engage the PBORA, especially in terms of the next steps. As you are aware that any entity which is out of a working group which has been established by PBORA or PBORA, in terms of preference, I think PBORA. And this is going to guide maybe the next conversations as to how we are going to act, so that we also do not create information gap where an entity is existing out there without information as to what they are going to inevitably be there. So we will try as much as possible to coordinate the activities, and that has started in terms of even providing input into the documents which have at the onset, when there was an idea now to try and formulate these regulations, we had a conversation, a sit down with all persons who are supposed to be an issue in terms of information gap, and also how we can help any person who is supposed to cross over in terms of now those who are going to continue activities. So that is still work in progress, and I believe as we proceed, we'll be interacting more. And I know in other forums that maybe PBORA is going to be prominently involved, so that at least we can also enlighten anyone who falls within that category as to the regulatory requirements. So thank you.
Of information on beneficial ownership, which is very important, and I think many of the colleagues here will have questions regarding that. And I'm happy to hear that most companies limited by guarantee are considered as low risk, and so not so much the focus of the community-based organizations. So my next question is to the State Department for Social Protection, and to ask Ms. Jacinta Mwende, what steps is the State Department taking to CBOs?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. We are grateful to be here and happy with the collaboration and the conversation around how we can strengthen impact to this country. When we look at community-based organizations, we know they are the backbone of service delivery at the community level. Looking at the impact organizations like CBO have on the most vulnerable. As a Directorate of Social Development in the State Department for Social Protection and Senior, our objective is actually to mobilize and empower individuals in this country, groups, families, communities, so that we can improve the livelihoods. And that is how we have the mandate to register community-based organizations alongside self-help groups, women groups, youth groups, so that we can improve livelihoods. Because when these community groups voluntary, people from the same locality, they voluntarily come together because they have within the same geographical location, and they have common interests, or a self-help group. Community-based organization is two self-help groups or more, they amalgamate together, or individuals who are like 10 in number. Activity that is going to benefit the community around them. When I was working in Kitui, I remember as a social development officer, we were able to identify sit in a place called Vonza. Vonza has a lot, is it Kwavonza? No, Zombe. Zombe has a lot of stones, and they'll just bask at the marketplace. So one that this, we can register them, you know, as a self-help group, and they would collect stones and put them at the roadside, you know. Then, through the office of the district commissioner, we look for market apported, mobilizing them to do what is possible so that we can improve their livelihood. So you can see the impact of these CBOs in the community. So what have we done to strengthen the 47 counties? Each sub-county is governed by a sub-county social development officer. And this sub-county social development officer, when you want to register a CBO, how many are you supposed to be? What kind of constitution should you have? So you can see recommendation is very practical. Beyond compliance, it is about empowerment, enablement, so that each community, they came together in the first place. And when you look at the social development committees, they are multi-sectoral. You will find the Ngao there, you will vulnerable in the community to uplift them from extreme poverty by empowering them in a sustainable way when we register them. The other thing we have done is that we have the community development management information system. That was one of the government services, digital services that were launched by the president back in 2024. And we have their data in the CDMIS. So they register online, and we have capacity build. MIS is not part of our CBO. We are encouraged them. It's a gradual process to really register so that we have their data. We are talking about answers, and then they also provide progress reports of how they are doing online, and registration is also online, just to encourage accountability. And we have the Community Group Registrations Act that was ascended to by the former president in 2022, that really spells out, you know, how social development officers, how long it should take to register a CBO, how they should handle conflict, how they should submit financial reports. So we have that, and we can be able to carry out the provisions in the Community Registration Act. What else have we been able to do? And we look forward to collaborate more with PBORA and make sure we really invest in CBOs on the issue at stake on terrorism, and even awareness, sensitization and awareness to the community, because so we look forward to really collaborate and be able to not just tick the boxes on compliance, you know, but being able to we are saying how many risks have been brought down, terrorism financing. What kind of growth are we seeing for CBOs and all the NPOs? Give real data of growth and development, and that will really encourage the nation and even the donors, because that's what we want to see, impact. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Jacinta. And I find her voice so soothing that I find it hard to stop her. I hope you're getting the message across. And if you get anything from it, I think it should be that they're focusing on ensuring there's more support to enable CBOs to meet their set objectives, which I think is collaborative, and we've been partnering a lot over the last year in order to get together the frameworks that we want, and also to think about how to spread awareness about terrorism financing that is involved in, in responding to this risks and deficiencies is the banking sector. And banks routinely take measures to address risks from different sectors, including nonprofits and other customers.
Thank you very much, and good morning all. So I think just to talk about, picking up on the de-risking aspect, or even potentially industries. And we did, from the banking sector side, we did suffer that quite a bit back in, say, between 2010 and 2012. When we were de-risked ourselves by some of the, to really discourage de-risking and find other ways of mitigating risk. And as I was just listening in today, and even leading up to this discussion, I was wondering why, and when you deal with vulnerable groups, it's an altruistic kind of framework which becomes very attractive to the kinds of persons who will want to try, and it's easier then to indoctrinate, yeah, and make these people then align with your view. Well, that was just, a general thought for us to then think about it. And when you come back to financial inclusion, and it was almost like a checkbox. Does it meet this? Does it meet that? If it doesn't, then you lock it out, yeah, which leads to the de-risking. We have to then reflect as banks on what measures do we need to put in place that are truly risk-based and understand, yeah, what PBOs are all about, what types of a bit. I cannot emphasize it enough that it is critical for us to all work together so that we understand the risks that come across from, each perspective. PBOs to understand that we are better able to then support, the PBO sector. The other thing is differentiation, yeah, which is very closely related. In order to properly frame the risk, then we have to be able to, of public benefit organizations. And there is some level of understanding that we need to develop, collaboratively once again, groups, and then what is the true risk? Is there any real risk, basically, that we need to address or think about? And that comes then to type to be done, and that will then inform the understanding that we'll have, even as financial institutions that are supporting, the PBOs, on how best to support transparency and risk, yeah, and transparency is driven mainly by data. I think we've had that quite a bit today, that a lot of us are looking for data. Why are we looking for relationship? Where when you provide more data, there's a better understanding and the risk goes down. Typically for banking, we look at things in two broad ways, yeah, opportunity and risk. So the opportunity is there, that's where we, come to de-risking, for instance. And then to support that, data is best managed when you're using technology, and innovation. However, we can start, just like with the banking sector. A couple of decades ago, we started with very limited views, very limited solutions that we had in place because the global systems that were available were quite costly. Of course, with the necessary risk mitigations that you have to put in place because we don't know where a lot of this information is going if you're going to rely fully on AI. Yeah, but we can use, at least basic. And with that, then I would say that maybe the most important thing could be trying to reframe the narrative. Yeah. So with PBOs, I think one of the as under financial inclusion, because when you put it under financial inclusion, as we've had Bernadette had mentioned earlier that 80% of the populace or of our activity is informally driven, under the informal sector. So then we are able to work together within this financial ecosystem. Banks, why they truly try to mitigate risk is because they're the nexus of, the financial transactions. They terminate at a bank at some point. Or any other risk, we're talking about basic fraud or other types of risk exposures that come towards the financial institutions. So with that, I think once we've understood it, when we frame it and focus on, cross-sectoral discussion on what we need to focus on, how can we better support it, and then how do we develop it long term? Thank you.
Inclusion is an important
I want to take this opportunity to invite all the PPOs, our stakeholders, our partners to this year's PPO Week 2026. That will be happening in April 13 to 18. We shall be also having our same in our regional offices of Mombasa, Garissa, Nakuru, Kisumu, and Eldoret. This year's theme is A New Dawn.
That they work in. So those are some of the support that the regulators can give to NPOs, specifically or most particularly NPOs that work on humanitarian services.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks a lot, Fred. I hope the regulators are noting those challenges, especially around access, about ensuring also that we are not stigmatizing those nonprofits in these areas, particularly in the northeastern region and the coastal regions. So, which I think is very vital and very useful from Fred's perspective, having also been working with Muhuri for some time. And my final question before we take some questions from the audience will go to David and Robbie. Just, we know that terrorist actors are using different methods now, leveraging technology, using crowdfunding sources and virtual assets to bypass the traditional financial oversights that financial institutions and banks usually put in place. What red flags should nonprofit organizations and banks look out for to detect this potential abuse in online fundraising and digital donations?
Yeah, thank you once again. Just as a way of background, the country has conducted a national terrorism financing risk assessment. And then number two, there's a sectoral risk assessment for the NPO sector. So when you look at the national terrorism financing risk, it is medium high, which means that the country is vulnerable for terrorism financing. But for the sector, NPO is medium low. It's a bit low. So first of all, we have to understand that if these NPOs are raising money, where is the money coming from? When you look at our national risk assessment, we have identified jurisdictions that poses a risk. We have to understand, even if an NPO is raising money through crowdfunding or through virtual assets, does that NPO have mechanisms to establish and determine where is saying, I want to donate, but I'm going to use virtual assets, but I don't want my identity to be revealed. So it makes now, remember there are those individuals who have been sanctioned by the UN, either the UN through the 1267 or have been sanctioned domestically as having involved in terrorist stand, where the money is coming from, where the money is going, looking at the TF, the terrorism financing risk assessment, the national as well as the sectoral.
Right, thank you. I think Robbie has covered it quite well. So perhaps I'll take a slightly, I'll shift it a little bit to how the transactions, certainly. There are the positives and there are the negatives, the two sides of the coin. And the key things, first of all, transaction relationship, with our customers. And there are three key things that we then consider, which is identity. So one, trying to identify the origin source, where did this cash originate from, and what is the purpose, what is it going to be used for. And those are the things that kind of lead you towards then identifying. And one of the whys is why. Yeah. So why is this transaction being conducted? And then the other one becomes for what? What is the purpose? Yeah. Whom is it benefiting? Yeah.
To ensure that the funds we are receiving are themselves protected and don't put us in danger just by virtue of being the recipient. So for sure, looking at those sources.
I want to take this opportunity to invite all the PPOs, our stakeholders, our partners to this year's
in various banks. I don't know which plans you people have put for us to know which banks are specified for us to open our CDAs, because we have made our president to be the patron of our monies. Thank you.
Of the new regulations in place, maybe this question is going to be Bora and the State Department and station. And you heard from the maybe State Department also, where we have many CBOs who are operating around the borderline counties, you know, Garissa, Wajir, and NPOs, non-profit organizations also.
Good morning, or is it afternoon already? Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Joyce Wanjiru. I'm in grants and resource mobilization. In terms of how can a CBO with such low capacity in knowledge sometimes be able to identify some of the red flags in these funding opportunities? And does it all?
What are the compliance level of beneficial ownership? PBO areas told us theirs is 33%. And the other one still is how are you? So in relation to that, is there any entity that has experienced where you have cracked your whip and, you know, sanctioned these entities and
limited by grantee? Now, we had a lot of problem trying to register as a PBO until I got this flyer, and I can see here there's a best
FRC. I know many questions will be channeled to them today. But in general, for us to get out requirements or action points, not only the NPO sector. So just out of curiosity, out of the 21 action points, how are we looking as a country as you go to report? Or do we think that we've not been able to implement and we might still be there for some time? So how's your internal assessment on that? Thank you.
A solution to TF. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have a request over here. To all the panelists, as we give closing remarks, if there is any way you can share your contact information or a way for us to access you either in the tents or even after, so that there's a communication channel bilaterally. Thank you.
You can go directly to the panelists and just in
position, or you don't even know which are high-risk jurisdiction when you're getting the funds. And I think we all agree that the investment is low. And the solution to that, and also answer that question with Mukhtar's question, is how are we going to ensure that we are covering this conversation jurisdiction to TF. But if I'm getting money from Iran or Kuwait, it's a high-risk jurisdiction, and why is it a high-risk jurisdiction, and things like that. So the cure to that is
what has been raised earlier is not an assumed person. I think you understand what I mean, that in some cases, and in the past, there have been cases where people have presented themselves as being, this arises from the fact that historically these registers were manual. That is to say, people would registers were manual. That is to say, people would register by bringing forms to the office, and with the requirement to file beneficial, bringing forms to the office, and with the requirement to file beneficial ownership information. If you go to our website, if you come across any company, If you go to our website, if you come across any company, you can just search it there and check whether it is compliant, and that will give you information as to whether. Another thing we've done is that if you come to seek services from us and you've not complied, with the requirement to file beneficial ownership information, we're not going to serve you. We're not going to serve you. We'll direct you to go and comply first, and then we can. There still remains a certain number which is still not compliant. And what we've done is that we have initiated now the process of gazetting the non-compliant company. By verification in relation to the information that you hold to them as agency, agency-to-agency collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Representation of ISPAC for accountants, ICS, representation of ISPAC for accountants, ICS, then we have representatives from the law enforcement. To develop our progress as a country. So in terms of the outlook as a country, as indicated earlier and previous submissions in the opening of the week, 1 or 2, depending on the outcome of the Namibia face-to-face meeting. Also, just to indicate that some of these action items, you cannot progress to addressing this. You cannot progress to addressing this. For example, if you have to come up with a trust administration, legal framework, so that you cannot again answer. Yeah. I hope I've answered. I know it's a bit sensitive, and I wish I was on the other side. I'm not the reviewer, but we are the mercy of the reviewers. This is also one of the outstanding items in the grey list of the country being able to demonstrate the transition, how banks are reporting the suspicion, how ourselves we are analyzing and packaging it, and sending it to the asset recovery. The outcome of are we able to address money? Money laundering? Are we able to prosecute laundering? Are we able to prosecute, investigate, prosecute, convict, they be able to net high volumes. Of assets and properties. So the mechanisms are there. The mechanisms are there. The mechanisms are there. The mechanisms are there. But now, what is in the mechanisms are there. But now, what is in the grey list now? In the grey list now, NPOs, sham NPOs are not formed. Sham NPOs are not formed. NPOs are not used as facilitators, as entities providing logistics, helping the raise.
The call is we collaborate more. The call is we collaborate more with the authority so that we can have you know, the content can have, you know, the content that we need to give to the CBOs, because the structure is in PBOs, because the structure is in place. All we need to do is because we know where they are. Secondly, these CBOs know where they are. Secondly, these CBOs now with the CDMIS, they are able to request for training. They are able to request for training online through the CDMIS. So online through the CDMIS. So upon request for PS to the sub-county, and they also PS to the sub-county, and they also submit, the CBO submit progress reports, simplified templates, progress reports, simplified templates on how to report, addressing what
the student from Stareboy Center. Thank you very much for raising that question. And he asked on what NPOs can do to avoid being used, be it BRS or any other regime, but we never get to deeply understand the compliance requirements. I'm saying this out of complied with. So it's very important So it's very important to first get to understand the compliance requirements. Secondly, internally as organizations, we need to strengthen, need to conduct due diligence, both to our donors, and also get to know our targets, because most of the time it's either where the money is coming from or where the money is going. So it's also very important to be able to, how do we then show it out there that this is our donors, this is our beneficiaries, or this is even the money that we get from why even the NPO working group through the support from the I must acknowledge this. We got a lot of support from the we got a lot of support from the Civic Advisory Hub, one of our partners operating in Uganda, to start up.
I'm during the tea to ask these questions and follow up, and I'm looking at our panelists and hoping they won't be running away from the interactions right after this, but we can have a more intimate discussion and response to your abuse. Now also we need to understand that non-profit organizations are at low to medium risk of abuse, of terrorism financing abuse, but this does show controls within the institution, which is really the key to ensuring that our organizations are safe, and also that the people and the communities that we serve are safe and are not affected by this terrorism financing threats. We just need to respond to the specific threats that have been identified. You've heard all the regulators talk about the risk assessments that have been conducted to identify those specific threats. We also, and this is the standard that is required of all of us, be it non-profit organizations and regulators, in order to meet the Financial Action Task Force standards. And finally,
close. I'll welcome Caroline. Asanteni.
Speakers, the panelists, the partners and participants, for just that, making and giving this forum a fit can get our oversight right. As a regulator, we are really, really keen on ensuring that, we are providing the envisaged oversight without really constricting right. I would also want to really specially thank the continued interagency coordination and collaboration, and particularly also had representation from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. We don't take this for granted, and as one of our panelists saying, the government has taken a whole government approach. So we really, really appreciate the MDA. So we look forward to continued synergy, continued engagement on the issue and other issues affecting the sector. We look forward to continued mutual trust. It was mentioned here earlier that we
appreciate each other, but for the young man, the student, thank you for making sure youth is in the voices. So let's clap for them. Let's clap for them. Thank you to you, your colleagues, and even the support you get. Thank you to you, your colleagues, and even the support you get from your different, considerate of the people around you. Sawa sawa. Lastly, and considerate of the people around you. Sawa sawa. Lastly, I want us to considerate of the people around you. Sawa sawa. Lastly, I want us to.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to make an announcement. We
wanahitaji tuache wapite mbele yetu, wazee, walemavu. Ukikuwa kwa hiyo queue, tafadhali zingatia wenye unaweza. Tafadhali.
Thank you very much. Let us